There. Okay. This has a better camera than my silly phone. So, any camera, your digital camera, a film SLR, big giant view camera, any camera has really three major component parts. And the most important part is a light-tight container, whether it's protecting the sensor on a digital camera from light or protecting film or photo paper from light. It needs to be able to, keep the light off whatever's going to be recording the image. So that's part number one, and that's what this is.
I need to know what an SLR is.
You don't really have to at this point. I'm just sort of making just different kinds of cameras, sort of just throwing out random names. Even technically, like the camera on your phone has a light tight region in it between the lens and the sensor. And so actually, yeah, what you have right there is an SLR, meaning single lens reflex. But so any type of camera, all of them have this in common, a light tight chamber. And then the second thing they all have in common is a way to let the light in and out on our command, which we would call a shutter. Now you know your group's namesake. And then the next part is the other group's namesake, an aperture. In the case of the Pinhole camera, it is an aperture, meaning a little tiny opening. And it might be actually replaced by a glass lens in a quote real camera. But really, it's just those three things. You need a way to admit light in a focused manner into the light-proof container, and you need a way to control when and for how long it goes in, and that's it. Like, this is a camera you can drop. Yay! And so what's fun is, you can amuse yourself making cameras out of different things. I'm gonna aim this at the. That's right. You guys can see on the screen, even though I'm aiming it. Yeah. I kind of love that. This is working better than I thought. So you can see the dog bone camera. And so here you would tape film or paper on the inside of it, facing the lens, not a lens. You can see even the inside if I maybe, no, it goes too deep. I need like a little thing. But anyway, so lots of different things. I'm going to show you a slideshow of the wide creative range of items that have been used to make Pinhole cameras, just a small collection of them. It's something that, because it's so elemental, like, people get a kick out of making them out of, pumpkins, all kinds of things. Anything that can block light. Washing machine. I don't have a picture of that, so I won't be a spoiler alert. Someone made, I guess, a foil cover for the glass front of a washing machine with a little tiny hole in it. So that's the lens, air quotes. And then somehow got the paper into the back of the washing machine so they could take a picture of the rest of the laundromat. And then they could develop it by pouring the chemicals into the washing machine and turning it on. I don't expect they were welcome back in that laundromat after that.
Wow.
I think that was the last time that went. Oh, so this is cool. So if I turn this totally sideways, because you guys can see up there, I'm so excited about this. My poor non-compartmentalized brain. Let's find you a good place to see. Right there is probably better. Oh, no, right there. That's a good one. I yell like it's going to be the last minute. Because you have like a glass, thing, so y'all are unsafe. So that's just to show you kind of a physical thing. And then I have some lovely PowerPoints to show you about this. Where's my most fun one? This one. Deb, double click it. That part of PowerPoint hasn't changed. Oh, honestly, seriously, no. No. Just go away. Open my damn slideshow. Don't send me that thing again. I'm started. Seriously? Great, thank you, Jesus. Should have saved a PDF. Here's a little message. And you've probably all heard this in graphics before. Always save a PDF of anything you're doing that matters at all. I have PDFs. They're back on my other computer because I thought, why would I need that? All right, now we will let the other class in. And we will share of the screen down here with PowerPoint. And the buttons are where I don't remember them. There it is. Come on, be beautiful. There you are. So beautiful. Gosh, I know. You thought I was a graphic designer for a minute when you saw that slide.
Oh, yeah, totally. You were.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I like to use Comic Sans and Papyrus just to prove how little of a designer I am. All right, so we talked about this a little bit in just holding this up, but it's a light-proof container, and it's got a little hole, which is instead of a lens. And so those are the basics, and the light-sensitive material is what you see pictured there on the left, as you would guess. It's boxes of photo paper. You ordered photo paper or are going to order photo paper for this class. And I think I mentioned earlier that the system we're going to use for that is simply that you don't have to worry about, oh my God, she said we're starting out Pinhole already. My paper's not even like to Wisconsin yet, you know? So don't worry about it. I have lots of paper to start with, and you'll just sort of reimburse that big box of paper with whatever you use in this process. So you can see,
Deb,
yes.
is this PowerPoint on Moodle?
It will be, because I'm recording right now. Aha. And that just realized. I'm so glad you asked that. That was good. That's gonna be funny. Yeah, so I'm gonna record all these things, the stuff that actually is important to it, and upload it with a link from Moodle to YouTube, actually, but yeah. So you can see how the paper is being put into the can there. You know, sort of, it's curved around the back of the can, and you'll use a couple of pieces of tape to kind of stick it in place. But we'll talk more about what light-sensitive paper and film is, you know, how it works and how you arrange it in there. So there's the summary of it, and then adding on that the shutter, aka black piece of tape, but I'm not going to call you guys the black piece of tape. I'm going to call you the shutters. Then so there's a picture of a camera that's actually like taking a picture right now in the image. It's very slow to let light into that little teeny hole, so you have to put it down. You can't like hand hold it and walk around with it taking pictures. So this is also how your camera works on, like, again, no matter what camera. This is how it forms an image. So let's talk about how this goes. The translation is that the little box down there is the Pinhole camera with the little hole, and the tree is a real tree, and then the image of the tree is projected upside down. Because what happens is the light rays from the sun bouncing off that tree, they're going every which way. But just like the pupil in our eyes, the camera's aperture reduces and refines just which light rays are allowed in to the box. And so if you think about it, they've got to, like the light rays bouncing off the top of that tree have got to go at that angle if they're going to make it through that hole. You know, if they go at a different angle, they're out of there. You know, too steep an angle, they're out. Too shallow an angle, they're out. And so that's why the image ends up upside down, because they've got to pass at that steep angle in order to make it into the box. And one's going straight ahead, you know, like off the middle of the trunk, they're going to go straight through, and that's going to form the middle of the trunk. So that is actually what happens inside your cell phone, inside the cameras that are available. Check it out, all the cameras. Do you have a
Hello
question?
again.
Yes.
Emma got kicked out.
Oh, yeah, you did. Look at you. We'll let her back. We like Emma. Sorry, Emma. wonder what that was about. Zoom is rather mean.
It's very.
I bet it's the Wi-Fi is sort of taxed right now.
That's what happened when I went down my I
Yeah.
didn't get back in because the teacher wasn't.
Yeah, because they're not looking for they're like, oh, problem solved. I did my meeting room thing. So I don't know Eric Renner's mind. The gentleman that made this series of photos to teach you about aperture and its effect on the image when it comes to Pinhole. It's this really quirky guy who has run for, I don't know, is it 30 years, 40 years, this magazine called the Pinhole Journal. And it's like totally dedicated to pinhole photography. And so that's kind of his world. That's what he and Nancy, his wife, do is, you know, pinhole photography this. And so this is an illustration from his book on how to make a pinhole camera, illustrating that if you look on the upper left-hand corner, this is the equivalent of actually the smallest opening that would happen on a regular camera, f22. We talk about f numbers, like the f-stops down the hall, the other group. So the lower number on the f-stop means a bigger hole. The higher the number on the f-stop means a smaller hole. We'll go way into that in detail and you'll have a chance to really soak that in. But what the principle is here is what's written on the screen. The smaller the pinhole, the sharper the image. And so when we make our pinhole cameras, we want to take a pin, a needle, you know, and make a hole pretty darn small if we want a really sharp image. The trade-off is it's not going to make an image super fast. You know, you're going to need some pretty bright light, or you're going to need to be able to wait around a little bit. But the payoff is pretty worth it. It's really pretty cool, and you'll see some visual examples. So this bizarre little scene of what appears to be the Virgin Mary eating M&Ms or something. I don't even know. I guess I get Virgin Mary from that because of the shroud and the halo. But I mean, obviously that's not really her. It's probably a mannequin. I'm guessing it's a mannequin.
I thought she was Indian and she was eating sneaking bag chips.
Oh, it could be, right? And she's
just in front of the window.
I'm like, yeah, she's in front of the full moon. That's what she's doing. I know it. So about these light-sensitive materials, I say light-sensitive materials instead of film or paper because both of them have that in common, and they're both made the same way. So whether it's the film that we're placing into a film camera of yore or photo paper that we're putting into a pinhole camera, they both are made the same way. It's a base support of some sort of thing, and then onto that is spread what we call an emulsion of silver gelatin, and so that is literally gelatin, like Knox gelatin, and without the flavor or the color, unfortunately. And then the silver halides are silver salts, actual silver, like your jewelry. And a chemistry professor somewhere is probably like twitching as I just say, you know, silver halides, silver salts, yeah, like your jewelry. It's not metallic silver yet, I know that. It's some other sort of form of silver spread on there. But that is the light-sensitive element in our light-sensitive materials, is silver. And so we call it an emulsion just because it's sort of mixed together, and the gelatin serves as a binder to keep all that silver from just like not sticking to the paper. I wouldn't worry too much about this anti-halation layer business. That's getting more detailed than we need to for this class. But down below there, it's just pointing out that the base, like the only difference really between film and photo paper is that the base is clear plastic when it's filmed. And that makes it so that you can make a negative. Those negatives didn't print. I have all sorts of different sizes in here too. Maybe I can grab one. There we go. All right, that's a little bigger and more user-friendly. So you can see it's plastic. You can see through it except where the silver is. There, that's nice. So how this all works, this was actually really the sticking point in the invention of photography. You would totally think it was the camera, right? I mean, a camera is a pretty complex piece of gear. Like the invention of drawing was probably the stick and the mud, you know, and later the charcoal. And so you would kind of think the invention of photography, oh God, yeah, it's going to be the hardware. It's going to be the, but no, it was the chemicals. They've been using camera obscuras as drawing aids in the Renaissance, you know, to cheater, pumpkin eater on their perspective drawings. And so I believe I have a picture of that coming up in some slideshow or another. Pardon me while I tighten my mask. It's falling off. So yeah, it was the chemistry, and specifically they had all sorts of things that are sensitive to light. Think about your clothes, after all. Like if you've got a favorite shirt that you've worn for year after year, it's probably faded, right? That's light sensitive. So if you had left a dye-coated sheet of paper out in the sun with something blocking it, like a set of keys, and you left it for a week, you might have a more rich, saturated imprint of those keys on that piece of paper and then faded out and around it. So there was all sorts of light-sensitive stuff at the, you know, when they're sort of trying to figure out how to make this image stay. But the problem is, of course, when you take the keys off, the paper continues to fade and pretty much soon the image is gone. So the brilliant invention was the fixer, the way to make that image stay on the paper. And that really brilliantly, you can read the slide. I mean, it works by just taking away the silver that wasn't being used to form the image. So what happens is, we take our picture, right? We take our camera, we set it down on something, we take off the shutter, we experiment to figure out how long. We put it back on, that forms our exposure. We have now what is called a latent image formed on the photo paper that's in our camera. If we could take it out and look at it, and actually you can in the darkroom, it'll still look white. I'm like, I don't even, you know. But when you put it in the right chemical, the developer, step 2 up there, that chemical reacts, and it only reacts with the silver that has been exposed to light. It leaves the other silver alone. It ignores it. And so that silver converts. It's a reduction process. Another thing where I'm just saying the words, but I don't fully understand them anymore because I wasn't good in chemistry. Those of you who do, it's a reduction. It reduces the silver halides to now a metallic silver. And so that's the magic tray in the darkroom. Like the first tray, you put a white sheet of paper in, and you rock the tray a little bit for the chemicals to flow. And then all of a sudden you just start to see this image come up right, you know, in front of you. And it's just the coolest thing. So next you have stop bath, which is sort of boring. All it's doing is neutralizing and stopping the developer. And, but also because the developer was a base, we don't want to drag too much of that base chemical into the acidic fixer. So the stop bath also prolongs the life of the fixer. It's a valuable chemical. And then finally we have the fixer, which, like I said, just brilliantly removes the silver that would want to fade. And now you've got a permanent piece of art. If you notice, though, the last thing you put that thing in was acidic, kind of like vinegar acidic, you know. And so that's enough that over time your paper would break down, turn yellow, and be no good after a couple years. So what you do is you wash it. And then the paper you guys bought, if you process it right, like your great-grandkids will have that photo. 75 years easily for RC paper. 200 years for fiber-based paper, the more sort of archival museum quality type of silver gelatin paper. So it's kind of amazing, you know, digital technology is catching up there a little bit, but those original silver prints last an amazingly long time. So here's an example. I took this down in Chauvin at the sculpture area. We did a little pinhole workshop down there. So there's probably the Miss D biology boat, and I had the pinhole camera sitting on the bulkhead aimed at the boat, And on the left, you see the paper negative that developed out of the camera. And then I scanned it on a flatbed scanner and printed that out to create the image on the right. So you flip it horizontally and you go in Photoshop, one little control to invert the values. There are phone apps that will invert the values for you too. So like what I'm gonna have you do is just take a picture of your negative when you develop it and flip it on your phone, and there you go. You can post it to Instagram and do. No, you will. So it's really cool. I love so much that I have been a photographer during this transition in time of technology, because when I was in beginning photography class doing pinhole photos, you were really restricted to the size of the negative you made in the camera, and then the way you would see it in positive form would have to involve another piece of photo paper the same size. So you'd stick that in the darkroom, you'd put your paper negative down on top of it, and you'd shine a lot of light, so because it would have to go through the paper, through it. And so then, because black becomes white and white becomes black, it would reverse it and print it. But you were totally limited. You know, if you were making paper negatives, you were limited to making it the same size. Or you could put film in the camera and then you could enlarge it, but that was more work. So it's so cool. I think this is one of the many analog processes that it's really fun now that it's been hybridized. You know, it's like it can be half super old school and then half new, and marrying those processes makes it have even more creative potential. So let's look at some camera possibilities because they're just so fun. These are all made, I believe, by this guy, Scott McMahon, who's been really into pinhole photography and clearly just spends his time thinking, what kind of cool shape could I use next? Look at the coconut in the foreground on the little orange stand. I always want to say Wilson when I see that. I don't So yeah, so I don't know how he gets the paper into that. Maybe there's a little seam, like maybe he cut the coconut so that you actually have to put it together. But I can tell from looking at it, undoubtedly one of the eyes is where he's mounted the lens, which is pretty great. Next to it, right behind Wilson, in fact, there's a couple of them with two apertures, right? Look at this one. It looks like it's probably got 4 lenses. I see the start of one back here, and it looks like it's sort of a semicircle made out of mat board. So, I mean, if you think about it, there is no reason you only can have one lens. Why not have your paper mounted in the back of that thing, have all those lenses projecting different images? It's kind of like cubism gone camera, right? It's like different, slightly different points of view all melding together. And again, you could do it in Photoshop. You could take a picture from here and take a picture from here and take a picture from here, and then you could stick them all as layers and overlap them and feather the edges. But there's something kind of magical about having the chemistry and the light just do that, and you take it out and it's Christmas. You either get a good thing or something you didn't want. So these are some of Scott's pictures. I think we might have an old birdhouse right here. One with a little handle, T. And that's just the start. This was obviously a very big pinhole camera. They took a picture of the Great Wall of China, and there they are posed with the Great Wall behind them. And I can't remember the details. No. It's in centimeters besides. But for those of you good with the metric system, it's 129 centimeters by 365 centimeters. That's actually from the Pinhole Journal, so I can look that up. Here is one using an egg, and the inside of the egg, there's a photo emulsion you can buy. Like you paint it on, and it's like it's just the emulsion. It's not the base, right? You provide the base. So they painted it inside this chicken egg in the darkroom.
Just swish it around?
Yeah, I'm guessing exactly. They just put some in and kind of swished it and poured it out, and then sealed it in place with the little domed pinhole. Took the picture, and then removed that and developed it. And so then here's this photo that was taken with that egg, and it's printed inside the egg. Kind of cool. Of course, you knew there would be a VW bus involved in this. And I kind of love that is the exact model that I grew up in. It's even the right color. Hey, that's my, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, so, oh yeah, I see that I put in the note, I even shamed my sister. She ran it out of oil and cracked the engine block. Sadly, just like 3 blocks from our house. She almost got away with it. But instead she had to like push it off of the busy road into the guy's driveway as it continued to crap oil all over his driveway, and he wasn't terribly happy, and she wasn't allowed to have the car out anyway, so there was that. It's very, very sad. The image above it, Abelardo, I always say his name wrong, Abe Morel, is an artist. You can find a lot of his work. He's really made a lot of work with this camera obscura / pinhole technology. And so he'll go places, like he'll rent out, say, a hotel. One of the ones he did, he rented out a hotel room across Piazza San Marco in Venice from the Doge's palace. And so he specifically chose it so that at a certain time of day, the light would be good on the Doge's palace. Blacks out all the windows. Aluminum foil is great for doing no harm. Blacks out all the windows, makes a little aperture in the middle one. And so then what you see is upside down, the Doge's palace projected into color on the opposite side wall. So you get this really nice thing in his work of like the modern day hotel that actually you can see from the picture. I mean, that's a pretty venerable building that he's using there. But it's like, you know, these landmarks are being projected on the inside of these more functional day-to-day structures in some of them. And it's weird to think of it as being in color, but yeah, it is. I mean, it's projecting everything upside down, and it's just that it's a big, giant version of a pinhole camera, which, like I said, by the way, is called a camera obscura. Were any of you here when we turned the gallery into a camera obscura? No, I was going to say, I was thinking maybe Monica was, but we had a little gap in between shows in the gallery. And so we made that be a camera obscura, and it was really cool. You could see people driving by. You could see people walking up the stairs to Talbot and stuff. You're like, hey, you made a security camera the size of a room. This currently holds the record for the biggest picture ever. And there you got it in feet. It's 32 feet tall and 111 feet wide. And it was made in an airplane hangar. And what I really loved about seeing this, they had it on display in New Orleans for a festival down there. And they had it tilted because even in the big giant warehouse, like there wasn't a tall enough ceiling. So you sort of walked along under this thing. And so you can see the air traffic controllers thingy there. Again, because it's in an airplane hangar, you have sort of a limited subject matter. It's whatever's across from the airplane hangar. So, like, but you can see silhouettes of like palm trees and stuff like that. It's really cool. You can see the brush marks. This too, they don't make actually photo paper that size in any factory anywhere. So it's stitched together. I want to say it was like linen or something that they sized and then painted on with a roller, lots of this photosensitive emulsion to create it. And it's great, like the statistics. I took pictures of their little informational cards, but they were like lens, you know, usually all the tech junkie camera, you know, photos you read in magazines are like, oh, I shot this picture of a hummingbird at f/22 at a 4,000th of a second using my Nikon D6000, you know, and their technical stuff read like that, you know, except under lens it just said 4-inch hole. And camera model, the number 115 hangar at Marine Air Corps Base in Irvine, California. It was pretty beautiful. So then while we're talking about scale, that is literally the inside of this photographer's mouth. He has used film and put it inside of a very tiny thing. There's my desk. This is one of the first pinhole cameras I made when I started teaching at Nichols. I made it as part of a demo during an art appreciation class. You know, I got to the end of the lecture and I was like, I bet I can make a camera in 5 minutes. I bet I can, you know, so I made this. You cheated. But here's this little picture. I propped it on Dennis Saporsky's truck. That is a picture of his windshield wiper. And I don't think we'll get too much of the COVID if we pass this around to look at. Just don't like lick your fingers or touch your eyes after.
I was gonna try to put it in my mouth like that guy.
Yeah, that would be good. I can't believe what tech made us do in class. It's so messed up. But I'm imagining, I mean, it wouldn't be super comfortable, but you could fit one about that size in the back of your mouth. You'd probably gag a little bit the first couple times that you tried to do it. But yeah, so he's got these amazing pictures, right? Like they're getting to know dad. Kid's like, I had to get the photo teacher or photo parent. And then, dude, he's got some cleaning to do. Look at that. I think he might drink a lot of tea.
You're just roasting this guy's teeth.
Yeah.
Why?
He put them out there and then, yeah. And we are not forgetting you down the hall in 205. I'm going to bring the little tiny pinhole down to you.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. After we spread our COVID all over it, we're going to bring it to you. So the other cool thing about Pinhole, which would help you sort of decide how to experiment with yours, is it has infinite depth of field, y'all. Like things this close to the lens are just as sharp as things like the distant mountaintops. And so it messes with your sense of scale, or it can. Like you could have a little plastic horse in the foreground and a picture of mountains in the background. And because that horse is not out of focus like we would expect it to be in a normal photo from being that close, like everything we know about photography, we kind of think that that's really a big horse. And there's an artist I love her work, Ruth Thorne Thompson, who takes advantage of that. She'll like make prints of something, and so they're flat, they're printed out, they're on like mapboard or something, and she'll cut them out, and then she'll stage them into the scene and then rephotograph the scene. And so it's like she's collaging in a camera somewhat. Really beautiful work.
So,
right?
did you just put the paper in there opposite the hole?
Mm-hmm. It's beautifully
How
easy.
long does it take?
That it's always dependent on how far the light has to travel to get the paper. So for that, it was pretty short, you know. And then it also depends on how wide the opening is. So what you do is you just test it first. And the pinholes that I'm going to have you guys make, we're going to somewhat standardize the cans that you pin them into or you tape them into. And so I'll kind of take a look and judge and say, you know what? Go aim this at something out in the bright sun and leave it open for a minute, and then come back and develop it and test it and see. And then from there, we go with like, okay, if the paper was really, really dark and you could barely see the image, try half the time. If the paper was really, really light, but you could sort of see the image, try double the time. And we narrow in on the correct exposure really fast that way. So it's sort of a test.
Why does it have the gold in front of it now?
That's the lens.
That's when you cut through it.
No, I had to cut a hole in the, did you look at the inside, how it's taped in place?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what that is, and you'll see more at the end of the slideshow. The last slide I have is like step-by-step how to make it. And what we're gonna use is just cut out aluminum can squares, and we'll put a hole in that. This is brass shim stock from an automotive store. It's just really thin, thinner than a can, so it just gives a little bit. Yeah. hang tight, I'm gonna run down the hall into the rooms. That'd be so cool. Yo, send someone to the door. There's another student walking down the hall like, what are they gonna do?
I dig it.
Come on, man, we're recording.
Grace is on her way. We played nose goes to see who went.
I can pass it around, just don't lick it because it's been handled. I'm really glad like the dean or Dr. Clune wasn't walking through the hall. Don't like it. No, really, we're taking this very seriously. We're being very careful.
We didn't put it in our mouth.
Right, we joked about it, but we did not do it. And that makes the difference. So the other thing that's cool is, so it makes, small items can become looking very monumental. And then that thing is like a super wide angle of view. Like here also is, it's like the outside and the inside of the hotel room, just like setting it on the windowsill. And so that's definitely not something that you could get with a regular camera. It would insist so much on focusing one place or the other. The other thing is, as you can see from a lot of these, and I'll show you there, this is the good slide for it, you can build them any way you want. Whether you have a super wide angle of view or a more telephoto zoomed in angle of view simply has to do with the size of the film or paper and the distance that it is from the hole. And I'll show you how I use this gold piece of frame to do this. I have a lot of, it'll look good in this.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you move the tape on this little thing?
Oh yeah, that you can take it all apart if you want to see. You can take the top off and see the actual photo that was taken in there. And the tape on the outside of the shutter, you can open that and see the lens. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because otherwise it's not as interesting, huh?
Yeah.
When she was so excited to share this with us. It's a black plastic canister. Am I supposed to be excited? Yeah, so we're talking like how do you get a wide angle of view? Here's one where the lens is on the front. And so if I keep forgetting, you guys can see it. No, you can't. I would have to unshare the video. I'm gonna stop share for a moment. There. Interesting, this didn't get the memo. What is that? I'm gonna end the show. I'm gonna minimize. There I am. Okay, now you guys can see too. Make it all big. Oh, silly nose. That was almost the end. Boy, I'm glad I'm recording this. Y'all, I am totally gonna redo this recording. Okay, so there's the lens, right? If we think about that first diagram with how light is coming through here at a certain angle, like it's bouncing off the subject here, it's gotta go at this angle to make it into the box, then that means it's gonna render its image up here, right? And conversely, got to come in at this angle to render the image down here. So what if this box were deeper? This is sort of like a zoom pinhole. Because now it's kind of compressing the image. Do you see how the angle is now less steep than before? Because it's traveling farther before it hits the paper. So when it's shorter, it's grabbing from much higher and landing it on the paper, on the same part of the paper that it would have been landing it on when it was zoomed, but only going at that angle. So whether that completely soaks into your brain or not, the principle is that the shorter the distance between the paper and the pinhole, the wider the angle of view. At least, you know, given the same size of camera back. And so that's where we were sort of getting to, oh yeah, here's another one that's a nice example. So what you want for super wide angle of view is like a big giant place for the paper and a really narrow distance to get to it. So this bad boy takes really wide angle pictures, you know, because it's really spreading that image out. On the other hand,
Camera's coming down the hallway.
you want to catch it? Nice!
Oh,
That was way better than technique than my throw. Very good.
softball.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
You get up and do.
Yeah, exactly. I was talking, we did all these best, yeah, you're welcome. Y'all, if at any point you need to, you're more than welcome to. I was watching a thing about high flex teaching and online teaching and just teaching all summer long, but this woman was so funny. Oh, she was just talking about critique. It was a critique thing I was watching. So they were face to face. But she's like, oh, you know, critique. So sometimes people start to get really, you know, they get tired. They're sitting in a place, and when my crit starts to lag, there's a church across the street from my building. I have my whole class stand up and go run around the church and come back. I'm like, I know right now that you are not teaching in Louisiana. My students would kill me.
Yeah.
I'm like, thanks, Miss Deb. When I'm freezing in Pelche later with my sweaty, wet armpits, you know. So bad. So let's go back to, hey, oh, hang tight. It's minimized. There. Now does it come up? Oh. Oh. And now it's up. There we go. That was so close to seamless, y'all. It really wasn't. There we go. So I think most people really, really enjoy the wide angle of view for pinholes because it can be so ridiculously wide, you know. It's just really a fun thing to see. I mean, man, you know, this is probably in a really narrow slot canyon. It's in Utah, and so you're just getting this sort of zoomy feeling going right down. And so I had some pictures in the slideshow of my own work. I actually got into graduate school with pinhole photography. How awesome is that? I owned like all kinds of really good equipment, but no, it was pictures made with a pinhole. And then I took it with me on one of the Europe trips. So this is Mount Etna with, it's like the lava flow. And so you can see that's a pretty small pinhole. It's a pretty sharp image. And you see the kind of blurriness going on back in here. Because it's a long exposure, you can even see some blurriness right here where one of the flowers in the back of the little ape is it's blowing in the wind. And so even though it's a bright daytime picture, the time to create the exposure was long enough that people moving around and going about their business ended up a little bit blurry, and the little flower blowing in the wind was blurry as well. So that's kind of fun too. You know, you get to experiment with what looks like time exposures, even though it's bright day. And this one actually is an example of one that maybe doesn't even need to be a pinhole photo. I mean, it's got a nice sort of sense to it, I suppose. But when you're experimenting with it, I would recommend putting something really right up in the foreground and then also include some background. Because to me, that's what's really emblematic of Pinhole, where you go, wow, you know, this sort of, okay, you know, it captures those trees along that walkway, but other than having it not be as sharp as a film camera, why would you take that picture, you know? Here's one of my desk. This is a really small little tile that's like this big. And so it's really right up in the foreground. But again, kind of like that other picture, you can see the patio outside and all this other detail. It's kind of neat. Little still lifes on my desk. Banana plants. Mystery chickens behind a banana blossom. This is more of a good example. Like that banana blossom is like really close to the Pinhole camera. And because it's a wide angle of view, it's also getting all the chickens doing their little chicken things and the fence. And like you can see as far as the sharpness, you know, this is just as sharp as the chain link fence or the overhang on the barn. And only if you're moving do you get to be mysterious. And some mangroves and things at the Nichols farm. This poor little Incan dove got himself trapped in the greenhouse, and of course, genius here had to catch him and make him pose for the Pinhole camera. It's just like, FML, let me go. But he was so pretty, look at him. And he even held still enough to show his feathers. I'm glad that I had this slideshow to show you because that photo really didn't really mean anything, but it was cool. So here's Pinhole Construction 101. The answer to what that bronze was that you were seeing in there. This is the cheap solution, is to just cut up pieces of a soda can and a needle as opposed to a pin. In spite of the name Pinhole, needle hole would be better because they're a little bit finer tip. And so you make this hole pressing against ideally kind of a soft surface, maybe an old piece of mat board or something like that, so it can push through. But really kind of spinning it works the best, like holding the needle stiff, pushing down, but then sort of turning so you're almost drilling through it. Because the goal is to not get a whole bunch of kind of material pushed out on the other side. We want it to be as round a hole as possible. And you don't want it to go too far, it'll be too big. So you want a little bit of the needle showing, but not a ton of it. I'm guessing I had someone else model this. Oh no, I stole them from the internet. I'm seeing it now. So then we're gonna sand off any burrs that we have on the back side of it. You can use, obviously, an emery file, that works really well. If you wanted to make your Pinhole camera at home and then bring it back to school to actually start testing it, you could do that. Or in the classroom, I'll bring a bunch of sandpaper squares so you can use sandpaper to do this step too. You're gonna sand off the burrs. Here's a close-up. And so this is taken with the Pinhole like sitting on a light table, which has been moved, and now it's over there. And then there are magnifiers and sanitary wipes, so maybe like we won't all do that. But you can check it for roundness and then gently sort of poke the needle back in. If you really want it to be super sharp, you can even go that far with it. You don't have to. You know, you can put the hole in, or the needle in, sand it on the back, hold it up to the light, kind of squint, and if you really see something protruding down in there, sand it on the other side, poke the needle in gently to sort of squish it out and go back and forth. That's going to be fine. And so really, next you're going to tape it into the camera. And I think that putting the tape on first is really key. It's so maddening. Like, think about it. Even if you were making one out of this camera, to try to hold that little tiny piece of aluminum lined up with the hole in the can and then push the tape all the way around. Oh, hell no. You know, so you totally have to put the tape on all four sides, making sure that it really hangs over. I've got a whole bunch of pinholes ready to show you. Because when we do high school day, we change all the pinholes to being bigger ones so that they can take the pictures indoors. And then I store them because I'm loath to do it again. So, so you want it taped with a good amount of black tape around the edge because you don't want the light just coming in under your edge of your pinhole. There, you can see the view.
Plumber's tape?
And you can use electrical tape, or also I have black drafting tape, which is kind of nice because it doesn't stretch and it really sticks well. This is one camera you can leave out in the heat, you know, so if you're taking a picture out in the sun, you don't have to worry about that electrical tape kind of like going like that. Just like that.
Sound and everything.
Yeah. If you hear the sound coming out of your camera.
You might have a problem.
Oh man. But yeah, like the old tried and true method is definitely just electrical tape, you know, humble supplies. And this even has links for other things. Pinholeresource.com is Eric, the guy that had the Pinhole Journal. That's his business. Freestyle has some supplies. That's where you would shop for the light sensitive materials. That's not so interesting to click on. And then this has that pinhole book and other process stuff. That's a fun one to click on. And of course, this is all just here because this was a workshop for other people who weren't going to be graced with my presence the very next day. So let's see, we are going to end the show. And then we're going to stop the share. And then we're going to give everyone a break because it's 1 o'clock. That was an hour. That wasn't too bad. I didn't wait until like 15 minutes before the end of class to realize you deserve a break. Pretty good. Good. Darn near seamless. So good thing I said that in the recording.